A crate of bioengineered marijuana winds up at a strip joint after a drug deal gone bad, bringing with it a renegade DEA agent and a swarm of monstrous critters. Just what owner Ralph and dancers Crystal, Trix, and Amber need as they struggle to save their club from shutting down. An exterminator is called in to thwart the infestation, but quicker than you can say Roach Motel, these oversized insectoids groove. They are made of tougher stuff. The club is under attack by a stealthy, skittering invasion of big, bad, bloodthirsty bugs, and there's nowhere to run, no place to hide, and not a lap dance in sight. And when the DEA heavy falls victim to a hungry horde, you can be sure he'll be back, but he might not be quite human anymore. I'm Corey.
And I'm Paul.
And we are the B-Movie Bros.
Here we review B-movies and other low-budget films as critically as we possibly can.
We are broadcasting from Millvale Studios on the River's Edge Network. And on this week's edition, we bring you the 2004 Chillorama cinema release of Bite Me. So you heard what was on the back, and now we're going to take a look at what is on the cover.
From the cover, we've got, looks like a mutated monster type of guy. We've got some kind of bug monster and some kind of spider with a weird-looking face. And next to them, we've got two of the women in the movie, one holding a gun, one and dressed like she's in the army, and the other just kind of grabbing her arm.
Half naked.
Yeah, can't forget that part.
So, looking at this movie, looking at the cover, and reading the back, what do you expect going into it?
Strippers.
That's all? Just strippers?
And bugs and monsters, but mostly strippers.
I'm thinking maybe the army and a group of strippers join forces to fight off an infestation of giant bugs.
I could see that.
That'd be pretty epic.
But mostly strippers.
So, let's get into some character talk here. There's not too many characters in this movie. We've got, first off, the owner of said strip club, and his name is Ralph. And Ralph is very interesting.
Yeah, to say the least.
We got a couple of the strippers. We've got Crystal, who's the sympathetic and caring stripper. She's a little timid, doesn't seem quite comfortable on stage. We've got Amber, who's the lazy stripper. She just kind of does her own thing.
Lays around, smokes pot, and strips. Living the dream.
And then we have Trix, who is just like this innocent, has no idea what she's doing stripper. She's there to try and make some money, but she's not committed to it.
The worst stripper ever, like her act doesn't work.
We've got Teresa, who's a woman trying to take over the strip club. She's a royal bitch and a half.
Plan is to take over the strip club.
We've got Gina, the bartender, who is the easiest person to sleep with in the club. She kicks ass, she takes names, she gives out drinks.
And fucks a lot.
Then we've got the exterminator, Terrence O'Reilly, who's also known as Buzz. He's not very smart and gets embarrassed pretty easily.
I think if your nickname is Buzz and you're not Buzz Aldrin or Buzz Lightyear, you're probably a bit of a stoner.
And then finally we have Miles McCarthy, DEA, the crazy homophobic asshole who's investigating the strip club, trying to find this stolen marijuana. And that's it. That's the characters. Not too many of them. We're just going to get straight into technical difficulties today. There's not much to this story. Basically, you've got the strippers. They're stripping. Teresa's trying to take over the strip club. Amber finds pot in the basement. Bugs come out of it, start attacking people. They call in the exterminator. He does his thing. Miles shows up, tries to kill everybody, and giant bug showdown at the end of the movie.
Pretty much. I don't know why, every time you say take over the strip club, it's like, I think of it as like this menacing thing. Like, I will now take over the strip club.
What are our plans tonight, Paul?
try to take over, same as every night, try to take over the strip club. That
So
would have been an interesting episode of Pinky and the Brain.
We're going to jump straight into, does it match up? What the cover art shows you, what the description is, and the movie.
Not really, because the main point, I guess the main plot was the spiders taking over, like biting people and changing their personalities, but you've got this monster guy and that, you have this green monster-esque guy, obviously a mutated kind of man.
Or an evil professor of some kind.
Or an evil professor.
Or a giant cabbage.
He kind of looks like Davros from Doctor Who, minus the thing that he's in, the chair.
I'm still saying a cabbage with eyes.
I could see that, yeah. Or a Cyberman. But, and you've got this bug guy. He's not a spider, he's some kind of other bug. And they were in the movie, like, don't get me wrong, but they were not as big as the spider. So to just have the spider in the very back just seemed weird. Like, I think to do a more accurate job is have, like, little spiders, like, located throughout the cover. I think that would be more appropriate. Also, they've got the two girls, but, like, they're wearing way too much clothing.
And also, it's misleading. I think the main story is actually them trying to keep the strip club, not necessarily the bugs, but the Teresa trying to take over the strip club is more of a story than the bug thing.
I disagree with that. I think that kind of fell by the wayside with everything that happened, the whole trying to save the strip club. Plus, like, the strippers didn't care that much. Like, one of them was already getting fired. The other ones, I kind of felt like they were there, but they would have found other jobs. So it was basically just the guy who owned it who was pissed off, but he was pissed at everything. So
yeah, that was just kind of him.
Yeah, default anger.
So time for technical difficulties. Now, like we started last week, this is going to be a top and bottom three of this movie. So, do you want to start with the top three or bottom three?
Let's start with the top and kind of move our way down.
So, Paul, give us your top three about this movie.
Okay, I can do that. I'd say at number three, the dialogue in this movie was pretty good. It was fun to watch. There was really no point where I shook my head and I'm like, that's terrible dialogue. They were trying too hard. I enjoyed it, even though I don't think there were the best lines in any movie I've ever seen, but it was fun to watch. I enjoyed it. On number two, I'd say there was this stop-motion monster, which is just amazing. I know you're always saying that stop-motion and claymation and all that stuff is a lot better, and just using props is a lot better than CGI. I agree with you, and this really proves in that, because when you compare the CGI spiders to the stop-motion monster,
It's like the comparison of diarrhea to a regular piece of shit.
Basically. And I'm still going to contend that CGI isn't inherently bad. It's just like, it is nice to see things that are claymation or stop motion. You know that people worked really hard on it. It is fun to watch, no matter how you are.
Traditional.
Yeah, it's traditional. And number one is the fact that the strip club was a giant dinosaur. That was just amazing. It was just, when we watched the special features, they took a Godzilla doll, like, changed it so that you couldn't tell.
And I like that. I mean, when a guy is trying to shoot a doll, when he calls the bartender a dyke and then orders another drink and then has like a Mexican standoff with her.
Yeah, that was pretty great.
You know, thinking that he can win. I love it.
He's so over the top too. He was just a lot of fun to watch. It's like he was drilling everybody, and it's like he was in completely the wrong movie. It was just great.
Like, who the fuck are you? Miles McCarthy, DEA, and I'm shutting you down, motherfucker.
Like, he was the bad cop that was like questioning people, but he forgot the good cop, and he forgot that he was at a strip club and not interrogating somebody.
So, yeah, those are my top three. The fight scene, the strip club being dinosaur-themed, and the characters. So let's hear about your bottom three people. Bottom three. Let's depress some people here.
Okay, so for number three, this one's at the bottom of the bottom list, I guess, because it wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but still kind of, I didn't really like it. There was an open-ended ending in which they show the strip club burn down, and there's a giant spider there. But personally, I would have liked to have seen the giant spider do something rather than just end the movie on that. I mean, I see where they were coming from, which is why I didn't make that number two or one, but I personally didn't really like that. For number two, I think that since you had spiders biting people that changed their personalities completely, the two strippers, Trix and Amber, had the most, I guess, prominent characterizations. Them and the investigator, and they weren't bitten at all. They just kind of went throughout the movie being themselves, and I thought that was, what was the point of making them so prominent in their personalities if you weren't going to reverse it the way you did with the other ones who had personalities but they weren't as defined, they weren't as stringent and everything. I thought that was kind of weird. Like, Trix is really clumsy. If she had been bitten, like, she would have been completely opposite. Amber was a stoner, so obviously if she had been bitten, she would have been completely the opposite of that.
But yet Gina, who didn't really have an established character,
yeah, exactly,
she got bit, and it went from her being a whore with men to being a whore with women. She went from being straight to being a lesbian.
Yeah, you'd think she'd be really prudish after that or something. It was just very odd. Like, that was for the fans. They just wanted lesbian makeout scene.
And then Crystal, like, she went from being not prissy, but being like a girly-ish girl to being this tough, badass, kicking ass and taking names and chewing bubble gum and all out of bubble gum.
Yeah, and it was strange because, like, you would expect that from Trix because she was more the timid, like, clumsy one, and Crystal was, nice and kind, but her personality wasn't as extreme as, like, Trix's, so I didn't see the point of them really going that way with their personalities, just to have nothing happen with that. I thought that was kind of weird. I also would have liked to see the investigator get bitten by a spider and see how he would have changed. That would have been really entertaining. But my number one, and this one really annoyed me, you have a dinosaur-themed strip club, yet none of the strippers have a dinosaur-themed act, and that bugged the hell out of me. Like, none of them had, like, had like a dinosaur helmet or like...
Or a tail.
Or a tail.
Or like a scale bikini or something.
Exactly. And I should not know this, but I found out recently that there is such thing as dinosaur porn. I did not look this up, I swear. Somebody told me about it, and... you Google things when you hear about it. I'm just a normal American, and...
All I have to say, Paul, is Rule 34.
Well, true.
If it exists...
But
there's porn of it.
This is a pretty, apparently, like, widespread fetish where people enjoy watching dinosaurs and humans fucking. And that is really odd, but it's a real thing. And the fact that exists, but none of these strippers could, at least attempt to dress as dinosaurs, come on, like, what's even going on? What kind of world is this?
No, I have to jump straight into mine, because actually that was number 3 for me.
Really?
Number 3 on my bottom 3 was dinosaur-themed strip club, no dinosaur-themed strip acts. So I'm just going to keep rolling here. Number 2 was continuity errors. There were more than one. One of them being during the stripping scenes, they would have, faraway shots and close-ups, and they would switch between them. And in the close-ups, you could clearly see that clothes were off, tits were hanging out, and then they would go to a faraway shot, and the clothes would be back on. Back to a close-up. Clothes are off.
Like a big F you to the audience.
Yeah, so I just, that bugs me. Continuity errors. It's like little stuff. Eight heads in a duffel bag, when they're threatening Joe Pesci at one point. The guy's got a gun in his belt. It cuts away to Joe Pesci. It cuts back to that guy. The gun is gone. It's nowhere. They cut to Joe Pesci. They cut back to him. The gun is back. No explanation. Continuity errors. Bullshit.
I agree.
Number 1 was... the god-awful CGI in this movie. Like,
I thought it was kind of funny, like, just because it was so low budget.
In college, use this program called Alice to create, like, a digital story. And, like, the characters don't match up with the background. They just kind of, like, are moving on screen, and they try to make it look like it's actually doing something. And that's what happens in this movie. Like, they're crawling on people, but obviously they're just going straight and not, like, crawling up them or going around things or actually biting them. It's just something two-dimensional happening in a three-dimensional world on top of it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if they had actually used good CGI or anything else, it would have been I don't know if it would have
and remember,
worked,
too,
really.
this is 2004 that this movie was made.
That's true. And
So-
everyone was still, ooh, CGI.
CGI wasn't as big as it is today, and it was also more expensive to do things that looked nicer. So, and with a movie with a budget of $1 million in 2004, I think they did the best that they could.
1 million, wow.
Yep, $1 million was the budget for this movie. So that's my
Before
3.
Kickstarter.
My bottom 3. No dinosaur themed stripping, continuity errors, and the horrible CGI.
I have to say, when you have a strip club and you have a strip scene and you put more clothes on the stripper, that's just mean. Like, why would you do that?
And you know what? Since you thought the dialogue was so good, let's get into a quote war.
Quote Wars!
Have your best shot, Paul.
All right, here I go. It's my sworn mission to erase scum like you from the earth.
The guy on the phone. Ooh.
Indeed.
Well, you're very sweet, honey, but you don't feed the G-string. Crystal.
It's kind of hard to get too upset about anything when you're comatose. Also, Crystal.
Hey, don't push me. I know a lifer named Roku who's looking for a new sweetheart. The man on the phone.
I don't want to talk to nobody about these bugs, especially not to a trashy blonde with a voice like a cheese grater. From Ralph.
The little bugs. She killed one with her shoe, for God's sakes. You act like you're in some kind of 1950s horror movie, giant bugs knocking houses down. We can handle this. Also, Ralph.
Ralph did have the best lines in that, I think.
And that's it for our Quote Wars this week. Don't forget to tweet us at BMovieBros, all one word, and tell us which quote was the best and who won this episode's Quote War. You can also find us on Facebook at our Facebook page, BMovieBros. What else is there to say about this movie? There's really not much else. I already said it had a budget of $1 million. The one trivia thing about this is Misty Monday, the actress who was originally, who was the main character, Crystal, was originally supposed to play Amber, and she didn't get that part because at the time she had quit smoking, and it was required for Amber to be smoking in a lot of the scenes.
Yeah, well, since you mentioned it, I think we should probably mention Misty Monday a little bit, just because she's, for those who watch a lot of B movies, you should know who she is.
So Paul's going beyond the real and talking about Misty Monday. Also, her real name being Erin Brown.
I think Misty Monday is probably one of the most well-known B-movie actresses, at least that I can think of. And she's been in a decent amount of movies we've seen.
Most of which are softcore porns.
Pretty much.
Actually, one of the first movies we saw together in a big group was Lord of the G-Strings.
Which was essentially a softcore porn.
Version of Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Starring Misty Monday as Dildo Baggins.
Is it Dildo Baggins or Dildo Saggins?
It was Dildo Saggins.
Yeah,
that was
I
it.
knew there was a pun on that. Like,
With Smirnoff the Wizard and all those other fun characters.
at least it wasn't YOLO Swaggins.
So, yeah. She's been around in a lot of movies. She worked her way up from doing just kind of like softcore porn and everything, and she really stands out in this movie. Everybody else, you can see they're okay actors and actresses, but Misty Erin, she really shines, and that goes for anything I've seen her in. Like, she's definitely above the talent level of where she gets cast, and it's kind of sad.
She's an actress that's just fun to watch. Like, she'll take a role and really kind of go with it. And, I mean, none of them are really great roles. None of them are well-developed because they're B-movies and they're softcore porn. So, but she just makes it fun to watch. And that's partly because she's a fun-to-watch actress. Partly because the name Misty Monday just kind of sticks out in everyone's name. Also, she's kind of hot, too. So.
Very hot. Yeah. I think, at least.
My fiance might be listening, so I won't say either way.
My wife listens every week. And, whatever.
Well, you're a
She
braver
knows.
man than I.
So, let's get into our final take on this movie. So, Paul, I want you to give me a score on the shot scale. 1 to 10. Remember, folks, that our shot scale is a reverse scale. 1 being the worst, 10 1 being the best, 10 being the worst. How many shots do you need to get through this movie? Paul, just a number score.
I'd say for number of shots to get through this movie, I would give it a 4.5.
All right, well, I am going to go and say a 5 out of 10. So I'm going to give you 90 seconds to justify your score. Go.
Okay. This movie, it's definitely a B movie. No one can watch this or even look at the cover or go into it thinking that anything's going to happen that doesn't really happen. I mean, like I said, I think there should have been more. They should have had, if you have spiders that change personalities, they should have gone with the other strippers that had more prominent personalities. I still don't know why they did it the way they did. There are definitely decisions they made that I completely disagreed with, but it wasn't my movie, and I still had fun watching it. Even though I enjoyed the dialogue, at no point was their dialogue where I'm like, man, that's dumb. And with a lot of B movies and even a lot of A movies, I still enjoyed it. I was entertained through most of it, but I definitely felt like I needed a drink throughout the majority of the movie, mostly because it made it more fun, but also it did drag on a little bit just because it was so overly predictable. So that's about it.
All right, well, for me, I give it a 5 out of 10 because Bite Me really isn't anything special. It's got some fun characters, it's got nice practical effects mixed with cheesy CGI and stop-motion special effects. The place where this movie shines is its characters, though. They do interact well, they have wonderfully diverse personalities. The bug bite personality changing aspect gives the lead actress a chance to basically play 2 different characters. She, above all the others, shows great potential and acting ability. When you add all this up, it leads me to my 5 out of 10 score on the shot scale. It is cheesy and fun, but it's also pretty forgettable. If you really like bug movies or stripper movies, then it's definitely one for you to check out. Otherwise, that's it. I don't have anything else to say.
Yeah, I think you summed that well up. You summed that up really well when you said there really is nothing special to it. It is pretty forgettable.
Except Misty Monday.
Oh, yeah. But, she's in so many movies we've seen, so many B movies, that this one didn't particularly stick out. I think Lord of the G-String really stuck out more than this one, but...
Well, even Chillorama, that sticks out more in my mind than this.
That's true. It's this was a fun movie. It's a B movie. You know exactly what you're getting into, but there really is nothing special.
And the fact that I've seen this movie a total of 4 times now, and it sticks out less in my mind than Chillorama and Lord of the G-Strings and Spider Babe, which are all movies I've only seen once with her in them, and Sick Girl. And I could probably go on naming them, but we're not going to get into that. Instead, we're going to get into one of our favorite segments here, A Movie Companion. Because, we know not everybody here likes the same kind of shit that we do. So we want to give you the opportunity to see a movie that's basically the same movie, except it's an A-class movie. So we're going to tell you why this A movie is just a different version of this B movie. So for me, I have to say that this movie, Bite Me, is just a B-movie version of the movie From Dusk Till Dawn, 1996. From Dusk Till Dawn? You mean that Quentin Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez vampire movie? Yes, I do. And here's why. Both movies start off with a set of criminals. In From Dusk Till Dawn, you've got George Clooney and Quentin Tarantino, the Gecko brothers. In Bite Me, you've got 2 stoners who stole a bunch of weed. They're both a set of criminals. Both movies primarily take place in a strip club. This dinosaur-themed strip club in Bite Me. The Titty Twister, a Mexican strip club, in From Dusk Till Dawn. Both have people transforming. In From Dusk Till Dawn, people transform into vampires. In Bite Me, people into bugs and opposing personalities. Both movies end, spoiler alert, with the strip club exploding. Well, I can't quite remember if From Dusk Till Dawn, the whole strip club explodes or just all the vampires. I know all the vampires, at least.
I never actually saw that movie.
And both movies have a badass bartender. In From Dusk Till Dawn, it happens to be Danny Trejo, who, as everybody knows, is the most badass person ever.
I agree. I wish he was my bartender.
In Bite Me, it's Gina, the straight whore turned lesbian whore who kicks ass. And that is why this movie, Bite Me, is just a B-movie version of From Dusk Till Dawn.
Okay, for my A-movie companion, I'm going to have to go with one of my favorite movies, Army of Darkness. And...
What a piece of shit.
Ah, fuck you. That's one of the best movies I've seen. But here's why. I feel that Bite Me had a lot of the same elements as Army of Darkness, but could have used more, the way Army of Darkness did. First of all, as far as, like,
You mean bad lighting?
There's nothing wrong with Army of Darkness. It's a perfect movie.
You mean Sam Raimi getting soft? You mean less blood?
You know what? Fuck you, and everything you say. Army of Darkness is one of the best movies ever, and if you can't appreciate it, well, you're un-American.
It's a worse Bruce Campbell movie than The Man with the Screaming Brain.
You're a worse Bruce Campbell movie than The Man with the Screaming Brain.
I'm not a Bruce Campbell movie.
Exactly. So, here's why. First of all, Army of Darkness had a ton of stop-motion animation. That's what made it really fun. A lot of the jokes involved that. It was, almost all the skeletons, at least, were stop animation. A lot of the Deadites were stop motion animation. Bite Me had just very little of that. In fact, the only one was the monster at the end. But let's face it, stop motion animation is awesome, no matter what time period you're living in. I remember as a kid, like, I had this really crappy camera, and I used to make, like, little stop motion movies with, like, just things I'd find. Like, I'd even use clay, but clay dries out and gets all over the carpet and whatever. But back to what I was saying.
Then Paul gets spanked.
Yeah. I was trying to make a movie. So, that's one thing. Army of Darkness had some of the best one-liners in any movie I've ever seen.
Because they couldn't think of, dialogue that actually matters.
It was meant to be that way. It was a joke. It was not taking itself seriously. Anyways, so... Almost lost my train of thought. But anyways, Bite Me had
Just
some
like Army of Darkness.
So, Bite Me had some really good lines. But it could have used a lot more. I would have liked if they had, like, more one-liners, especially when they're killing all the spiders and everything. I thought that would have made the movie... That would have stepped it up. Maybe I would have done with that with, like, one less shot, or at least a half a shot. As far as people changing their personalities, you had that with the spiders. A couple people that changed their personalities. The same thing happened in Army of Darkness, except it happened with two main characters. There was, obviously... Bruce Campbell's character, or Ash Williams, who he didn't really change his personality, but one of the Deadites became Bad Ash, which was completely different from
Evil
him.
Ash.
Evil Ash. Well, you're good Ash, and I'm Bad Ash. That's either way. Evil Ash, Bad Ash. The both of them work. But and then there's Sheila, who got possessed by it, and she became completely evil, and they weren't completely opposites, but it was fun to watch, and the same basic principle of it. And as far as Bite Me goes, there was an extreme lack of Bruce Campbell. And I think that is something that every movie could probably use more of. I mean, granted, Army of Darkness didn't have any Misty Monday and probably would have benefited from that, but I feel that Bite Me would have done better with Bruce Campbell. And, of course, I have to say this, Army of Darkness begins with an A, Bite Me begins with a B. It was just, it's meant to be.
For any of you Army of Darkness people out there, kind of like Paul here, I do have to explain why I hate Army of Darkness so much.
Because you're a bad person.
It's because I love the Evil Dead so much, and Evil Dead 2, and Army of Darkness, where Evil Dead 1 and 2 are primarily horror movies with comedy thrown in. Army of Darkness is primarily a comedy with action and horror thrown into it, and just... having seen Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 several times before actually seeing Army of Darkness, it just didn't stick with me. I don't like it. I can't get into it.
But it was meant to be that way. It was meant to be funny because a lot of the things in Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 with the clay animation, they were pretty goofy, but especially the end of Evil Dead 2 when he's like got his one-liner, he's got his chainsaw arm, it was just taking that and going with it for like the next movie. So I see where they were coming from. Maybe they should have warned people, but in itself, it is a fantastic movie.
I understand, but I can't get behind it.
I'll try to see your point of view. But
So, I think it's time for everybody's favorite game. It's time to drink away the flick. Drink away the flick. Come on and grab your drink. Let's drink away the flick. Right now, we're going to give you some fun drinking games. I'm going to give you a few, then Paul's going to give you a few to help you get through this movie. So, if you want to get through Bite Me, here's the first game. If you spot the Crypt Keeper from Tales from the Crypt, finish your drink. Number 2, anytime Amber does something unexpected, take a drink. Number 3, whenever someone is smoking, take a drink. Number 4, whenever someone is stripping, take 3 drinks. And number 5, anytime bugs attack someone, take a drink.
Okay, for mine, I've got number 1. Every time you're disappointed with a stripping scene, take a drink. Like, that's if they're wearing too much clothing, if it's just a complete letdown, take your drink. Number 2, every time a spider is shown that does not bite somebody, take a drink, because that seems to happen a lot. And number 3, every time something in the background looks like it was somebody's Halloween decorations, take a drink.
So there you have it. There are your games to drink away the flick. Now, next week, we have to talk about next week. We may or may not be doing the 2004 zombie movie Feeding the Masses, which not only came out the same year as this movie Bite Me, but it was released by the same company, Chillorama Pictures. But this weekend, Paul and I, my wife, his fiance, some of our friends from college, are going on a camping trip. And then next week, something amazing happens.
A movie we've been waiting for quite a long time is coming out in select theaters on Tuesday, August 4th. And we have to see it, and I really want to do our review on that particular movie.
And what is this particular movie, Paul?
This movie is Dragon Ball Z Resurrection of F. And it is the newest installment of the Dragon Ball series after last year, for those of you who don't know, a new Dragon Ball Z film came out after 16 years of nothing happening called Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods. And this is the sequel to it. So that one of my favorite shows as a child is coming back, and it is coming back with vengeance. So I believe we're going to do a little bit of a break from the B-movie stuff and talk about one of the best things in life, Dragon Ball Z.
Also, next week, we are planning to take a trip to Centralia, Pennsylvania. For anyone that doesn't know, Centralia, Pennsylvania is a mining town in the state of Pennsylvania in the United States of America, where in 1962, some of the coal miners set fire to a trash pile. Well, this trash pile caught one of the coal seams in the coal mine on fire. And eventually, parts of the town started to collapse, and the coal is actually still burning today. The town is abandoned. There are 7 or less residents left. The postal code has been revoked. It's a ghost town. And one of the neat things is the ground is warm because of the coal fire. And there's enough coal to be burning under there for the next 200 to 250 years. And because the ground is warm, anytime it rains, anytime it snows, the snow melts, the rain evaporates, and it becomes this eerie fog. And even in the winter, flowers can bloom and everything else because there's heat and warmth coming from underground. And actually, Silent Hill, the town Silent Hill, is based off of the town of Centralia. There's also a book, Vampire Zero, which is based... Actually, the story takes place a lot in Centralia. That's where the vampires are hiding. So it's exciting for me and for Paul to be visiting this place, and we might talk about Dragon Ball Z Battle of or Resurrection
of F, which is Frieza.
We might talk about Centralia. We might talk about Centralia the week after, depending on when we record our episode. So we've got a lot of stuff going on next week, so it's going to be fun for us. We might do a B movie. We might do a Dragon Ball movie. We might report our deaths from Centralia. Who knows?
Yeah, there's a good chance that next week's podcast may be our last, depending on whether or not we survive our trip to Centralia. So here's to hoping.
So, that's it. That's all we got this week. So, until next time, I have to say, be brave, be alive, be back next week. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at BMovieBros, all one word, and like us on Facebook at BMovieBros.